framed the affair in glass. Galleries smell like ambition disguised as dust. My name is Elias. I'm the registrar at the Arden, a contemporary gallery that prides itself on showing work that makes donors argue with their therapists. The man I loved was Jonah, a furniture restorer who could coax dignity out of wood and who carried patience in his pockets like lint. We lived above a bakery that started kneading at 4 a.m., so our mornings always began with the smell of things learning to rise. On our fridge, in my handwriting and his magnets, we kept 3 rules. Be home when you say, don't rehearse exits, kiss before sleep. We didn't write anything about curators who treat silence like foreplay, collectors who confuse desire with ownership, or interns who learn quickly where the shadows forgive. The exhibition was called Fracture, a survey of artists who understood that broken doesn't mean finished. Our centerpiece was a triptych of glass panels, scored, cracked, refusing symmetry. When the crate arrived and we opened it under the light that makes everyone speak softer, I felt the air shift. The artist, Milan, had come along for the unpacking. He stood a little apart, watching us peel away the foam, his eyes like hands deciding whether to touch. They're supposed to look like they survived something, he murmured. They did, I answered without thinking, and he finally looked at me. It was the kind of look that installs itself. Jonah met him at the opening reception. He came in late from his workshop, smelling of turpentine and pine, his shirt sleeves rolled like a confession. I introduced them in front of the triptych because I wanted both my lives to admire each other. Milan shook his hand, that soft artist's grip that suggests fragility, and said, "You're with Elias, you're lucky." Jonah smiled in his slow, reliable way. "We both are." I should have held on to that moment. Instead, I noticed the way Milan kept glancing at me while talking to him, as if Jonah were a frame and I was the art. Our curator, Adrian, cared less about provenance than provocation. She wanted the show to hum with scandal. "It's not just fracture, Elias," she told me, standing too close in the storage room. "It's fault lines." She asked me to adjust the lighting on the glass so the cracks glittered like veins. Milan watched me climb the ladder, his gaze traveling my back like a draft he planned to revise. Later, when the gallery was empty, he approached. "You hang things like you love them," he said. I said, "I hang things so they survive gravity." He smiled. "Same thing." The first kiss happened in the freight elevator, which is where most bad ideas clock in. We were moving crates after hours, both of us too tired to be polite. The elevator stalled for a second between floors, a glitch it rehearses often, and in that pause he leaned toward me. His mouth tasted like wine left behind by donors and decisions I hadn't admitted wanting. I kissed back, not long, but enough to let the air change. When the elevator jolted alive, we stepped apart like colleagues. Neither of us said sorry. That was the second mistake. I told Jonah the next morning because cowardice ruins breakfast. We sat at the bakery downstairs, coffee bitter enough to hurt, and I laid it out like a condition report. When, where, how long, what didn't happen. He listened, his hands around the cup like a carpenter measuring heat. "Do you want him?" he asked, voice steady. "I want the part of me he looks at," I admitted. Jonah nodded once. "Then don't let that part move in here." He kissed me across the table, soft but claiming. And for a moment I believed rules could be rewritten as easily as labels. Milan kept orbiting. He'd ask me to check the humidity in the storage room at the same time he did. He'd linger near the registrar's desk under the pretext of paperwork. One night, as I locked up, he stayed behind, claiming he'd forgotten his sketchbook. "You make honesty look like restraint," he said, stepping closer. "I should have left." I didn't. The kiss this time was slower, heavier, his hand at my jaw like punctuation. I let it happen until my phone buzzed with Jonah's name, and then I stepped back as if guilt were gravity. "I have to go," I said. Milan only smiled. "You'll come back." Meanwhile, Adrian stoked intrigue by leaking rumors to critics. One blog claimed the glass triptych had been inspired by a clandestine affair. Another insisted the cracks were literal maps of Milan's past lovers. Donors came twice, thrice, whispering as if the panels might confirm their gossip. Milan neither denied nor confirmed. He let the myths accumulate like dust on purpose. I cataloged the clippings with irritation and an ache I didn't admit. Jonah sensed the weather. One evening, after he'd cooked stew that smelled like patience, he looked at me across the table and said, "You're writing two versions of yourself. Which one do I get to read?" I didn't answer quickly enough. He reached over, squeezed my hand, and said, "Choose us." Later in bed, he put his mouth on my throat and asked here, with a plea that disguised itself as routine. I said yes, because saying no would have been betrayal too. The climax came a week before the show closed. Victor, a wealthy collector with a taste for scandal, offered to buy the triptych on the condition Milan accompanied it to his home abroad. Adrian loved the drama. Milan hesitated. He asked me to meet him after hours to discuss transport logistics. We stood in front of the panels, the gallery silent except for the hum of the climate system. "They'll be gone," he said softly. "I'll be gone." He touched the crack in the glass, then my cheek. "I want you to come with me." The kiss this time was desperate, dangerous, teeth and heat and hands pressing against a wall meant for art. I pulled away, gasping. "I can't," I said. Jonah loves you," Milan interrupted. "So do I," he left me with that sentence shattering louder than the glass ever could. I went home and told Jonah everything because lying would have burned the walls down faster. He stood by the window, arms crossed, listening to the city. "Did you love him back?" he asked. I took too long to answer. "Apart," I admitted. He turned, eyes sharp as chisels. "Then let that part go or let me go." He didn't shout. That made it worse. The final week was a blur of packing, shipping, donors pretending to mourn the show. Milan left with Victor's team, not looking back during the loading. Adrian toasted the sale as if she'd sold gossip itself. I filed the paperwork with hands that shook more than the bubble wrap. Jonah stayed. Not joyfully, not immediately, but steadily, because steadiness is his craft. We rewrote the fridge rules, added a fourth in his script-like handwriting. "Don't let fractures choose the frame." Sometimes late, I walk past the gallery and see my reflection in the glass doors, cracked faintly from years of use. I think of Milan's mouth, of Jonah's patience, of the triptych's refusal to apologize. And I go home, up the stairs that complain, into the kitchen where Jonah keeps soup ready. He'll look up, hand on a wooden spoon, and ask, "Here?" And I'll say, "Yes," and the room will hold. We framed the affair in glass, and it stayed there. Visible, fragile, never forgiven, but no longer ours to touch.